Hey everyone, welcome to A Mess Nonetheless. I'm Rachel.
And I'm Melissa, and we are sisters. And we are so excited to be here with you guys again. Rachel, I actually have to show you something before we get started. So obviously, if you're not watching on YouTube, you won't see this, but I will put a picture of it in stories. So I have a group of friends that we give each other group birthday gifts every year on our birthday.
Yep.
And I'm like as close to the microphone as I feel like I can get. And Rachel,
It's like off-centered.
Get closer.
It's like off-centered. Yeah.
Feels like it's not.
Watch this on YouTube. Melissa just crossed her eyes.
I totally just crossed my eyes trying to see it in front of me. Okay, so they gave me, my birthday was in December, but they gave me my birthday gift yesterday, and I have to show you one of the things they gave me. Rachel, can you see this?
A Mess Nonetheless mug?
It's a mug with a microphone, and it says "A Mess Nonetheless."
I'm offended. Where's mine?
Yep, I said Rachel's gonna be so jealous.
Amity, what gives? Where is my A Mess Nonetheless mug?
Also, I'm gonna have to post a picture of it. It's so
my gosh, that's so cute. I love it. Oh my gosh, I love it.
So shout out to Jennifer, CJ, and Amity, and we'll have to get you one, Rachel.
Yes. Also, my birthday's coming up. To all my friends who listen, which is like half of one friend. I don't think any of my friends listen.
She's gonna be 40. She's getting old 40. Like me.
Yeah, that's right. My sister's coming to celebrate with me.
Yes, I am.
Okay, so today we're going to get right to it because Melissa and I are sharing our stories, and we're going to do it on one podcast, which is going to take way more time than we have allowed. So if it's a little longer today, that is why. But we're going to start with just kind of like, obviously we were raised together. We kind of moved all over the country with our families. We're 5 years apart. We actually didn't become, we're 5 years and 3 months. So over 5 years apart. We didn't really become close until Melissa's senior year of high school when I was in 7th grade, because she made an intentional decision to get to know me then, or I was afraid she wouldn't know me.
We shared a bedroom
on purpose.
My senior year on purpose. I think it was my idea saying we should share this bedroom together.
Yeah. So she gave up her own room, moved into one with me so we could get closer. And by the time she graduated high school and moved to Minnesota, we were in Tennessee. We were like best friends. We talked on the phone all the time. Our parents, we had to pay for long distance back then, and they made sure that we could.
I had an 800. They got me an 800 number so I could call home anytime I wanted.
Isn't that amazing? Of our parents, and that is how old we are.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of the beginning of our story. So why don't we talk about, Melissa, what did you do right out of high school? You moved away like 1,000 miles away from family.
Yeah. So I did not grow up in Tennessee. We moved there the end of my sophomore year, and it just wasn't home to me. And so I knew I didn't want to stay there. So as soon as I graduated, like Rachel said, I moved back to Minnesota. I had never really wanted to have a career of any sort. I really just wanted to have a family. I really want to have, kids someday, whatever, be a mom. But I was like, well, I should probably go to school because that's what everyone seems to do after they graduate.
Well, you didn't have a husband at the moment or a boyfriend.
So I did not have anything making a family.
Exactly.
The other thing that made sense was to pursue something else. So, I moved back right after, or a couple months after graduating, moved back to Minnesota, lived with my grandparents, and was going to work and live in Minnesota for a year so I could earn in-state tuition pricing, so that, if you were here for a year, you could do that. But the day I moved back to Minnesota, I met this adorably handsome, obnoxious boy named Bill Schaefer. And the rest
is key.
Obnoxious is key. It was so obnoxious. And I just was googly eye over him. It was crazy. So, So I came back, ended up working, ended up not going to college because I just really didn't know what I wanted to do. Obviously I could keep talking. Should I end there?
Yeah.
Okay.
Sure. You met Bill, and we'll kind of end there, and I'll do my part. So we're 5 years apart. So by the time I was graduating high school, you had been married a long time, couple years, 3, I think. No,
you were 14 when I got married, so you would have been
3 years,
4 years, 3 or 4 years. Yeah.
And I went to college. I went to Jamestown College in North Dakota. It's now called Jamestown University, and that was a total cool God story. Like I wasn't supposed to go there, and then like very last minute, like in the spring, late spring, felt like God shut down the only school I wanted to go to and was like, you're not supposed to go there. And that's just like a really cool story to me because I was 18 years old and I somehow was listening to the Holy Spirit. I didn't know that I was listening to the Holy Spirit. I just knew I wasn't supposed to go to the college I had planned to go to. So then
you knew God was calling you to Jamestown, because I was out there with her one time visiting her, and we had gone out to dinner, and the server was kind of young and probably hitting on her. He's like, so what brought you to Jamestown? And she said, God. And he was like,
Melissa was like, you're so awkward.
Scared, and turned around and walked away.
when I first felt like he closed down those doors, then I was like, well, now what? And so I just
Yeah.
started asking people, where are you going to college? What other colleges are there out there? And I knew like I had so much peace about Jamestown. And
Yeah.
then I went out there with my parents and I had peace and just the whole time. And I knew it was
Mhm.
God. And the cool thing is if I had gone to Bethel, the school I had planned to go to, my husband, Joey, and I, who were high school friends, but had like kind of disconnected, would never have met up at the camp that we did because Bethel got out of college like for the summer 2 weeks later than Jamestown. And we ended up at a camp that only like non-Bethel kids could go to because Bethel got out so late. And then we fell in love and our story started there. And so and I'm always like, is that the only reason? But even if it was, like, what a cool reason. Like I had to not be at Bethel or Joey and I would not have reconnected that week.
Yeah.
So, okay. So then we shared how I didn't share exactly how I met Joey, but we went to high school together. We met, I was in 9th grade and he was in 10th grade and I had just moved to town and he had a total crush on me, which he would say now. I didn't necessarily know it, but I mean, kind of every guy I met had a crush on me. It's kind of my high school story. I'm sorry. Okay. It is true. I was new in town. I was this cute, tall, thin, blonde girl. Like the boys liked me. So he had a crush on me, but I didn't know it. And then we met and we were just friends through high school. And we did, if you've heard of Young Life, we did Wildlife together, which is the middle school version. And we were leaders together. So we were friends. Like we even went on a date or two together. I was good friends with his twin sister. We were in a Bible study together. So that's how I met Joey. But then after, like I said, college or during college, during college, I was going to say, were we out of college yet? We ended up at a Young Life camp together where it was called Work Week. And you go and get the camp ready, planting flowers and like, just pulling weeds and stuff like that, getting it ready for the whole summer of campers. And so I went up and he went up and we ended up being told, hey, you got to carpool together because everyone from your area already is going up. And so we ended up driving up like 3 hours together. And honest to goodness, like I was like, this guy is perfect. How did I not even like notice him? I mean, I did go on a date with him, but like I didn't really notice him very much in high school. And I wanted to set him up with my friend because she was so perfect and he was so perfect. And by the end of the week, I was like, screw her. I need this guy. Went home, broke up with my boyfriend.
Yep. The day Rachel got back from this camp, we had like seen each other for the first time in that week at
and mom was there too
at a graduation party or something.
A going away party. A friend of ours was moving away.
Okay. And so she didn't say a thing about Joey.
No, we just walked in the door together. That's all.
And my mom and I are like, you're in love with Joey Williams. So she's like, what?
I was like, this is my boyfriend. And they're like, well, obviously not for long.
Yes, his name is Joey Williams now. And it was just very obvious.
He's a really great guy and he married a girl I know and they like moved to Africa and adopted all these kids. I mean, they like, he's great. We just weren't supposed to be together. He was his wife and I was supposed to be with Joey. So, exactly. So Miss, you shared that you met Bill on the first day. But
so I met Bill the first day I moved up here. I had ended up at his house with my cousin, who I was really close to, because she was dating
our cousin.
I guess our cousin. Rachel and I have the same cousins. She was dating who's not my brother-in-law, Bill's brother. And so her and I had gone to pick him up and bring him up to school. He went to school a couple hours away and he didn't have a car. So we were going to bring him up there. And Bill was there and was literally about as obnoxious as a guy could be, clearly showing off. But I don't really, I won't even
showing off in the least attractive way.
Least attractive way. Yes.
You need to tell some stories.
What'd you say?
You need to tell some Bill stories, like from your first couple dates. Because it's so bad, you guys. We don't know why she got together with him.
He was just
adore him and love him. He's the best.
Adorable and charming and also just terrible. I mean, like, so he had never had a girlfriend. He had kind of gone out a few times, like had like short-term girlfriends for a little bit, but never really any kind of relationship. And he secretly really wanted to get married, but he thought that maybe nobody would ever like him, so he kind of would act almost out a little bit, almost like, let me just make sure you like me for who I am, and even I don't know what it is. Anyways, so when he came, he had like collected girls' phone numbers, because back in that time we didn't have cell phones, of course, so you had to like physically take people's phone numbers, and he like showed me, it was a stack like an inch thick in his wallet. He's like, these are phone numbers I love, and I'm like,
I forgot that story.
Okay. Yeah.
And you're not there to date him or anything. He's just
no, I'm not there. I didn't even, in fact, the only thing I had heard of him was that I wouldn't like him and that he was kind of disgusting, which he wasn't disgusting. I'm not really sure why that was the word that was used. I don't know.
Well, he hawked loogies and he laughed like,
yeah.
I mean, he still does, to be clear.
It's hard for me to tell these stories about him because that isn't who he is at all anymore, even though he kind of is, because he's just amazing and charming and sweet and funny and accepting of everyone and whatever. But he also was on the phone with a girl when I was there, which was very clear that he was on the phone with a girl. But he always tells me, he's like, oh yeah, but the whole time I was on the phone with her, I was staring at your legs because they were tan and sexy.
He's always
So
loved your legs.
anyways, Bill was interesting. And for whatever reason, I couldn't stop thinking about him when I went with my cousin and her boyfriend at the time. And so a week later, he called and asked me out on a date. And we went out, and I knew after that date, I was like, this is totally the man I'm going to be marrying. I could talk to him differently than I could talk to any guy ever. We just talked about anything and everything. I remember I actually wrote him a letter shortly after we started dating, sharing some thoughts about my faith and my relationship with God and just where I was at. And I was in this place where I was really, for the first time kind of in my life, digging in and trying to know who God was on my own and not just through my parents or whatever. And so I was sharing all this with him through a letter for some reason. I don't know if he was like working and I couldn't get a hold of him at the time, and I just wanted to get my thoughts out. And I didn't think anything about giving him this letter. It just was so natural. And so those are the kind of, even though he was kind of obnoxious when I met him, we just had this connection instantly where he was my best friend. And so we got engaged after about 6 months and got married. We met in 1990. When did I graduate? 96. So we met in 96 and we got married in 98.
Okay. And so I love Bill so much. He really is such a unique person because as obnoxious as he can be, and like on purpose, like he really likes, my husband's the same way. They like to be obnoxious. It's so weird. But he will be the first one to be like, "Ooh, Rach, is that a new toenail polish color? I love that. Ooh, are those new earrings?" Or he'll be like, is that Melissa's toenail polish?
Yes.
You borrowed Melissa's earrings? Like, what kind of guy? Like, he is so funny. And he's
especially because if you see him, he doesn't look like he cares about fashion or clothes or anything. He dresses like in sweatshirts and jeans.
But if you go away for an overnight, or he even goes on an outing with a bunch of guys, he will pack a bag of clothes.
Yes.
Multiple outfits.
And multiple pairs of shoes.
Always. So he doesn't,
even though they're all like black tennis shoes, there's multiple pairs.
Oh, Bill. He's so funny.
He is a very, very unique man. He's like,
he really is.
He's the kind of man who literally, you look at him and you're like, you might be intimidated by him when you first see him because he is big and kind of, he can look gruff. He's got a beard and I mean, he's smiling almost all the time. So he probably doesn't look gruff, but in case and he often wears a stocking hat, like low on his face and low on his eyes. And but at the same time, he'll carry my purse and be like, no one's gonna think it's mine, and if they do, I don't really care. Like,
yes, he's the best. Oh my gosh, I love him. So I've been Bill's sister. He didn't have a sister, he only had a brother. I've been his little sister since I was 14, and we've always had a really special relationship. Not that we haven't gone through hard things, because we've shared about that, but I've been his little sister for 26 years. And I just love
him. Really longer than that, because he met you when you were 12. And
that's right. Oh my gosh. And Mary, our cousin Mary, and I had a big crush on him because he was so cute. Oh my gosh. That's so funny. Okay. So then Joey and I shared how we met, and then we went to this camp and we ended up, like I said, I broke up with my boyfriend and it was like, okay. So back up. I wasn't going to start dating Joey right away because our dad was always like, don't jump from relationship to relationship, which of course I always did because the boys thought it was cute. I always had one in the waiting. And so Joey was no different.
That was not my story, by the way.
I always had a best guy friend who was just like waiting for me. And I had a few I never even dated, but so it was like, I could just break up with one boyfriend and like have another one who was like ready. And I already was friends with them. And so when my boyfriend at the time and I broke up, I was like, okay, this time this guy's different. And this time I'm not going to do it the way I've always done it. I'm going to, do it different. And so I asked my dad, like, can we go out to lunch? I just want to talk about this because Joey's family was going on like a houseboat vacation. It's kind of like camping, but you're on a boat, but it's very like rough and gruff, and you have to sleep in sleeping bags and stuff like that. And I was allowed to bring a friend, and he had invited me to go because I was friends with him and I was friends with his twin sister. And of course we were like madly in love, even though we weren't dating. And so I'm telling my dad, I'm like, well, I don't really know what to do. That's like 4 weeks away or 6 weeks away. But like, we're not dating. And our dad's kind of like, well, why don't you start dating? And I was like, well, you're always telling me to like slow down and not jump into another relationship. He's like, oh, yes. But this is Joey Williams.
Exactly.
That's what my dad said.
We had known him for a long time.
Yeah.
Like I had been his young life leader. Our
Yes.
dad had been his young life leader. Yeah.
Our cousin Mamie had been his young life leader.
Mm-hmm.
Our cousin Mary had been his young life friend. Like,
yeah.
And our dad had actually led Joey to Jesus. And so Joey's like salvation story, my dad was there. Our dad was there. And so he was like, well, this is Joey Williams. And I was like,
yeah.
oh, okay. So I told Joey, like, we're probably not going to date. I don't know about the houseboat trip. It might be weird to go if we like each other, but like, we're not dating. And so I drove to his apartment that night, and it was like 45 minutes from where I lived. And he was like, okay, so what'd your dad say? And I was like, my dad said we should date. Like in like 2 months. I'm like, no, he said like right now. That was the day we started dating. And then our brother Nate gave a speech at our wedding, which was funny because I totally didn't ask him to, and I don't think he even told me he was going to, but pretty much standing up there talking about how he never really liked any of my boyfriends. Keep in mind, I dated some of his friends.
Yeah,
he never really liked any of my boyfriends for me. But this guy was different. And like, it was just, everyone just loves Joey. He's impossible not to love. And anyways, so, but he is very annoying too. He likes
it's possible to dislike him sometimes.
It is, but it's impossible not to love him. He likes to annoy people. That's the worst part. And our children are getting to that age where I'm like, you're going to ruin your relationship with him. Poor Joey. His whole world is flipped inside out now that we have these kids who are going into their teenage years and they don't want to be annoyed by their dad. Rather just, anyway. So Joey,
they're annoyed by their dad. They're at the age where they're annoyed by their parents just when their parents show up. So
yeah, exactly. So then when they intentionally annoy them. So he's working on that.
Yeah,
so this was 2002, 21 years ago, that we started dating. And then, we knew this was May, and we knew like by the middle of summer, we were going to get married, and we actually wanted to get married the next summer. But his parents were like, well, that's ridiculous. You've hardly been dating at all. Why don't you just live together? We were like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not even having sex. That would be real tricky. And, but they were like, well, we were together 8 years before we got married. Like, how long were your parents together? And I was like, well, my parents got engaged after 12 days.
You heard that right. 12 days.
This is the compromise, 1.5 years,
Exactly.
But they were like really weird, just unsure of it. And so they weren't really Christians. I mean, they went to Catholic church and stuff, but, and so we just decided, we prayed about it, and we decided to honor them and wait till the next summer to get married, which was incredibly hard because we were waiting for all the things, to live together, to sleep together, to stay over in the same bed, things like that. And so, but then as luck would have it, we were supposed to get married the next summer. My sister got pregnant. And so our only options were move the wedding further out or closer. So we moved it closer because
they were like, they were planning on getting married like right when I was due.
And so we moved it. So we ended up.
So I was a big fatty at her wedding because I was like 8 months pregnant.
You so cute at the end of your pregnancies. So so we've been married. Next month will be 19 years, and we were together just short of 2 years when we started, or when we got married.
Yep.
And then you want to talk about when you guys started having kids?
Yeah. So Bill, basically, as soon as we got home from our honeymoon, he's like, well, let's have a baby. And I was like, what?
Nope. Like, well, I'm 20.
Exactly. I was 20 years old. I was very aware that I was not ready to be a mom. And in fact, I was kind of terrified, even though that's all I had ever wanted was to be a mom. I just could tell, relationships have a way of bringing out your ugly side. I always say Bill was like a mirror to me, to all my ugliness, not because of him being anything other than just I saw what I didn't like in myself in my relationship with him, which has helped me want to work on all those things. But I definitely didn't. I just could tell that I was very selfish, and I was just like, I'm not ready to have a baby when I'm going to have to put all their needs on my own. So
they have a way of doing that.
They do have a way of doing that. And so we were married for about 4.5 years before I got pregnant. And actually the way that I realized I still wasn't ready, but I had wondered if I was pregnant one time. So I took a test, somehow forgot about the test, like walked away from it. And if you don't know this, if you let a test sit too long, it will show positive. So I went back in the bathroom and I was like, oh my gosh, it's positive. And then for some reason I started questioning, did I leave it sit too long? Like, is this real? I don't even know why I knew to look at that. And so I read the instructions, and sure enough, so I took another one and it was negative, and I was super disappointed. But that's how I realized, oh, I am ready to have a baby.
I was very disappointed too.
Yes.
As luck would have it, they're very fertile. So 15 minutes later, they were pregnant.
as luck would have it, that is true. So yep, I was 25 when I had Ella. She just turned 20. And we have 5 kids. So Ella's our oldest. And then we have 4 boys. We have Tate. His name is actually William Tate. He's the 5th William, the 4th William. No, I don't remember.
I feel like you should know this.
I do too. We don't call him by the number. So I'm second
Yeah, like, they don't have the same middle name, so it's not.
No,
like,
they don't have the same middle names.
Yeah,
So-
we don't call him by a number.
No.
There's some people that you could call them by numbers. Number 2, number 4.
I was gonna say I have called my children by numbers before. It's because
Funny.
I forget their name. So, anyways, William Tate, he's almost he'll be 19, and then Tucker, and then who's 16, and Trig will be 15 on Thursday, and Tad is our youngest at 13.
Yeah, she
So-
had all 5 of them in 6.5 years.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
That was not planned at all, but apparently that was what God wanted. So here they are.
I'll never
All right.
forget the year that you wrote a poem for your Christmas letter, and it was
Mhm.
like, Miss and Bill clearly don't use birth control. I don't remember what it rhymed with, but we were laughing so hard. I was there when you were writing it. I was like, you have to say it. Everyone's thinking it.
Yes, they do.
Oh my
Well, and
God.
when we had our kids, we had all 5 of our kids in the first house we lived in, and it was a tiny rambler.
It's like
We had
1,400 square feet.
Yeah, it was 900 square feet on the main floor,
Oh,
and then
that's
we had
right.
and then we had a finished basement. And like half the basement was finished, and so yeah,
my
it was about
goodness.
13 or 1400 square feet
The
total.
world's smallest bathroom.
Smallest bathroom, like it's like most people's like entryway bathroom that they have like in their entryway with
Like
but
a
it had a
powder
tub.
Yeah.
But
A
it had
powder
tub.
room.
Yeah, exactly. It's like a powder room, but it had
Mhm.
a tub in there also. So it's so tiny, and the bedrooms were teeny tiny. And so people would just we were kind of like a clown car coming out of that house whenever we would go.
My
People-
favorite story. Oh, go ahead.
just every time I got pregnant, people are like, "Are you moving now?" And we're like, "No, we wanted to. It just wasn't working in our finances."
Oh
Are
my
you
gosh.
are you moving? You must be moving this time. Nope, not yet.
My favorite story about your tiny bathroom was when you were sick in one of your pregnancies and Bill was like brushing his teeth, and he's huge and there's this tiny bathroom and you were trying to get over him or behind
Yes.
him or under him. There is no
No,
round
around
person when they're brushing their teeth, and you
Mhm.
puke on his back.
on his back. Yep, that happened.
That
Yes,
would have
it
been
did.
to say it's time to move.
Yep.
But you did have a toilet in the basement, just one
We
toilet.
did have a freestanding toilet in our unfinished part
Oh.
of the basement. So at least in emergencies, when it actually came in handy a lot when we started potty training, because suddenly if there's only one bathroom and kids
Yeah.
can take a long time in the bathroom when they're learning to potty train.
toilet.
So one freestanding toilet, or like you felt like you were just in this big open empty room. It wasn't empty.
You
though, 'cause
were.
It had,
You were in a big open room.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So Joey and I, we started trying to have kids like on our first anniversary. We were out of college and working, and Joey was in med school, and we kind of just ditched the birth control and we're like, well, let's see what happens. And as many people have it, they get pregnant, and we did not. So about 20 months later, I was like, I'm not okay. This is not okay. And
Mhm.
convinced Joey that we needed to go to the doctor. And we were diagnosed with obviously infertility in 20 months, you're fertile.
Mhm.
And our issue was on his side, and he had tons of sperm, just tons, but useless, very useless, because they couldn't.
They're
like,
lazy.
no, they weren't lazy. They were fast swimming, tons of them.
Oh,
But they were
lazy.
shaped wrong, so they couldn't penetrate
that's
an egg.
Yeah.
And we had like a 0% chance of getting 0 to 1% chance of getting pregnant. And we have never gotten pregnant on our own. So we actually went the route of adoption first, because we had both wanted to do foster care and adoption. We were kind of open to however, and we felt like adoption was like a safer bet with our money, because if the first one, doesn't work,
Mhm.
your money's still sitting there waiting for a child, versus IVF. If it doesn't work, now you have to come up with more money. Hold on one second.
Rachel's coughing if you're wondering where
Sorry.
she went.
And so we did adoption, went through that process. We were very excited about it. And we actually ended up having her agency was fraudulent, and she went to jail. And a friend of mine had used,
Oh, that's
I
right.
had
I
2
forgot
friends who
about
had
that.
used them. So it's not like we just picked this crazy random agency. And we lost like $8,000. We were in our early 20s, and Joe was in school, and we were really good with our money, but $8,000 is a lot of money to anybody, let alone young newlyweds. I guess we'd been married like 3+ years at this point. No, just probably 3. But anyways, so then that was awful. And we had an adoption fall through. Our bags were packed. We were supposed to go. We had gotten to know the birth mom. We had gotten to know her mom. and her baby was born and she changed her mind, which of course
Mhm.
the right to do, but it was devastating for us.
Yeah, it was
We
terrible
took
to
off for the
watch.
weekend just to get some away, and our dog got hit by a car. So it was
Oh, was
just
that the weekend that happened?
same
I
weekend.
didn't
He ran
remember that.
away from my brother's wife, our
Mhm.
brother's wife, and got hit by a car in downtown Minneapolis, or outskirts of Minneapolis, but a busy area
Mhm.
by North Memorial Hospital, if anybody knows where that is. And so we're
But
on
not
our
a good
little
weekend.
getaway. On our little getaway, we get a call because the person who's hit our dog has called us because
Oh, yeah.
and they're like, "We have your dog. He's been hit by a car." I'm like, "What?"
Yeah.
I call our sister-in-law Bridget. I'm like, "What are you trying?" She's like, "Oh, I've been looking everywhere for him." It's like, "Well,
Oh,
he's been hit by a car."
she was
And
so
it was,
sad.
I know. Well, and we, he needed like a surgery and we were going to pay for it. But this was really sweet. My father-in-law stepped in and just was like, "I would like to pay for this." I think just because
Oh,
it had been,
I
and it was
remember
like
that.
$2,000, but he was
Mhm.
not an old dog. Like
No.
it wasn't like he needed the surgery to live. And,
Mhm.
and so anyways, so we ended up doing IVF because we were like, well, now we just don't want everyone else involved in our decision. We just want it to be between us and God and these doctors or whatever. But we're very we have strong stance on the ethical and morality of IVF. And so for us, it was very important that we didn't make more embryos than we could ethically and morally and responsibly take care of. And so
Right.
I got 20 healthy eggs and we said, well, why don't you take half of them and let them fertilize naturally, and then the other half and inject them. So they take the sperm because I said they don't penetrate an egg and
Mhm.
inject it into the egg. And we only got 4 embryos, which is an incredibly low fertilization rate. Like most people have like a 70 to 80%. And so we were like, oh my gosh, we're gonna end up with like, 16 embryos. And we only got 4. And then like the next day 2 stopped growing, which that happens in your body.
Mhm.
And none of the ones were able to be fertilized naturally. And so we were like, okay, now we know that. And we did get pregnant. We put 2 in and we got Brighton, who's 14, and
Right.
Ready Boo. And then I was like,
Which,
oh my
can I just
gosh.
pause and say that when my mom sent out the night he was born, my mom sent out a text. His name is Brighton Elijah. And my mom sent out a text that
Our
Brighton
mother is the
Eli.
worst at
Yeah.
communicating through text. She's always mistyping everything.
Yep. So she sent out how excited she was that Brighton Elila was here.
And everyone was like, that's the name we've been waiting for. Right now,
Elila.
Lila. So actually his hashtag on my Instagram is Bright Noe Lila, in case
Yeah, we call him that still sometimes. So
yeah, we call him Bright Noe a lot. So anyways, I was like, oh my gosh, pregnancy's terrible. And my mom and sister were like, yeah, we warned you, but I wouldn't hear it because I was infertile. I didn't want to
Yeah.
hear that the thing that they could do on their own and we had to pay so much money for and wasn't even a guarantee, was awful. But it really was awful. So I was like, well, we don't need to do that again. So we pursued adoption and we started fostering not for the purpose of adopting, though we would have adopted through foster care. But so we were kind of doing both at the same time. We had a lot of birth moms choose us and unchoose us. It was like 5, maybe even 6. It was a lot in a 2-year period. And excuse me, we had like 8 kids in that time, I think, that we fostered, and some for long periods and some for short, and some we loved and some we were like, good to see you.
Glad you stopped by.
Yeah,
Goodbye.
and some of them they were just hard, I mean, that, but we were new to it. And so some of them were just a lot more difficult. And then we ended up adopting Ada when Brighton was 2.5. And so Ada's now in 6th grade. She's almost 12. And same, I still didn't want to be pregnant. So we moved to Wisconsin. We started doing foster care there because we were in Chicago. Right away, we started doing foster care and had a baby right from the hospital and had her for 7 months. And in the process, I mean, it made no sense. We knew this baby was going to need to be adopted based on her circumstances. I felt like I loved her and I wanted to keep her, but I didn't feel like she was
yours.
ours. And one day I just kind of broke down and confessed that to Joey. And he was like, oh my gosh, I have felt the same way. But because I'm the mother and I'm the one loving her in the middle of the night and taking care of all her needs, because I was a stay-at-home mom, he was like terrified to like tell me this because what if I hated him? And so it was like so relieving to him. And we had this family who did respite for us. Every time I went to Minnesota, I couldn't take her with. Excuse me. And so they ended up adopting her and they just loved her. And it was like such a good fit for them. And so through that process, Joey, God totally opened my heart to get pregnant again. And so we did IVF and I got pregnant with Ephraim, who's 9.5. And then we met a kid through church youth group that needed to be adopted. And we ended up with him, Randy, our oldest. And then we inherited his friend. We were like, why are you always here? Why do you not have parents? And God gave me a vision that I was going to be his mom, and it didn't make any sense. So I was like, I argued with him about that, but prayed about like what that meant. And I became his mom as well. And then he was like, I have these two siblings.
Michael.
Oh, that's Michael. Sorry. And he was like, I have these two siblings out in Oregon. And one by one, we ended up with each of them, David and Amber. So we have 8 kids, and now we have 4 grandkids. Liam, who's 5, and then Gabriel, who's just over 2, just turned 2, and then Oakland, who's a year and a half, and then Maverick, who's like 7, 8 months. And I love my grandkids, and I love my children, and I love their additions. You know, like 2 of my grandkids have like moms with my son, and so they're like part of the family. And
they're all, we all know them. They're all wonderful.
Exactly. 2 of my kids have very serious, significant others. My daughter's getting married in December.
Yay.
So yeah, so I actually have 6 boys and 2 girls. And on the top half, the big ones, I have 1 girl and 3 boys. And on the bottom, I have 1 girl and 3 boys. So that is our family. We've done foster care adoption and domestic infant adoption and IVF. Oh, and our youngest, I forgot him. I forgot about Elon. He's 1. I forgot about him. It's just so hard. I can't breathe. I forgot. We also did embryo adoption because we had no more embryos and we didn't want to create anymore because we just were worried, you know, that we'd end up with too many. So we ended up doing embryo adoption, and that was a total God story. He just landed in our lap, and Eland is 5. So
yes, and he's incredible. It's hard to forget him, so it's hilarious.
He's very unforgettable. He's quite the personality. So that's
I want to add a little bit. I know we're going to need to end this segment of it pretty soon, but I want to add to my parenting story. So we always had a heart to adopt, and we actually had a teenager live with us for 2 years with the intention of adopting her, and she chose to leave. And so I call that a failed adoption because it didn't work. And we've had a couple other younger girls, like teenage girls that we have
and teen moms,
hearts, and teen moms, who have lived with us. And not that we've never gotten to be able to adopt, but we have gotten to love on a whole lot of people, including my nieces and nephews.
She's so good to my big kids.
I just love them so much. And then, but I do have two grandsons that it's not biological, but they are Zaylin and Zyler. They don't really have grandparents, and so they asked Bill and I if we could be grandma and grandpa, and they are 7 and 3.5, and they live 10 hours away, so we don't get to see them very much, but we Marco Polo on the regular, and they're adorable. And when they say grandma and grandpa, it feels and sounds so normal and natural. It doesn't even make sense. So yeah, we definitely love family no matter how it comes. In what form it comes.
Well, 3 of my kids have had children, and they're my grandkids are still not genetically mine.
That's true.
Which I forget.
Exactly. I forget that too.
My daughter, who I've had since the birthing room, her children will not be genetically mine. You know, it's like,
that's true.
6 of my kids do not have my DNA.
Yeah.
And I never think about it.
No.
So you were adopted by grandchildren.
We were adopted by grandchildren. It's exactly it.
I love it. In fact, somebody said, because I shared about that on social media, and someone said there should be a program because this person does not have grandparents for her kids. Parents are just not in a place that they have ever been grandparents to her kids. And she's like, I feel like there needs to be a program where kids can adopt grandparents.
I love that.
Yes. Someone start that nonprofit. I love that idea.
I love that idea too.
Oh my gosh.
That gives me chills.
I know. Okay. Well, we don't have a lot of time. So let's just talk quickly about where we've lived. And then if we have time, what we've done professionally. I'll just go quick because I've lived in the most places. So I lived in the Twin Cities and then moved to North Dakota for college and then moved back to the Twin Cities to get married and got married there for like 4 years. Then we moved to Chicago for 3. My husband did residency there. Then we moved to Eau Claire, Wisconsin, and we were there 11 years. And now we've been in Arizona too. And so, that's kind of my little living story.
And Bill and I have only lived in 2 houses ever since we've been married for
you didn't even live in
years.
An apartment.
Huh?
You didn't even live in an apartment.
No, we bought our first house right before we got married. That was the tiny little one I told you about. We lived there for about 14 years. And that was in a town called Cambridge, which is about 30 minutes from where I live now. So we've only lived about 30 miles apart. And now we've been in this house for about 12 years.
Crazy.
Yeah. And that's it.
I'm going all over. Professionally, do we have time for that?
Yeah. So by trade, I'm a photographer. I have been a professional photographer for 23 3 years, something like that. Now I don't advertise or anything anymore. My neck and my arms just can't handle it. So I just do it by word of mouth. But Rachel and I work together. She'll tell you a little bit about hers for quite a few years. And I've done network marketing, and right now I'm a server at a little Italian restaurant. I love that. Kind of just done mostly photography and network marketing.
Well, you worked at a credit union for like,
oh, it's true.
6,
Before
7, 8 years.
Yeah, when I was first dating Bill and until I had Ella, I worked at a credit union and did a lot of things there. Everything from a teller to a loan officer to started the training program there. Yeah.
Yeah. And I worked at a bank. Well, I worked at the same credit union for a couple of years, like through college, and then I worked at a bank as a, what did they call me? I don't know. I opened accounts and helped people fix their problems.
Yeah.
And then I started a videography business in the middle of that. So I kind of built my videography business and phased out. I worked less and less at the bank. And then that's what we did together. She did photos and I did video, and we had a business together. You didn't have to hire us together, but we sure loved weddings. We were hired. We loved doing that. And then because I moved to Illinois, I didn't want to keep my business in Minnesota. I did for like a year and a half. I did like 2 wedding seasons there, but it was a lot because now I was a mom and I had it was like a 6 to 8 hour trip, with kids. It ended up being 8. It was just a lot. And so I did like 30 weddings a year, and then I did like 10 and then like 7 because I just going back and forth so much. But then I loved photography. I loved the idea of photography, but because I didn't want to be like in competition with my sister, I never did it in Minnesota other than I would just snap pictures for friends. And so I actually built a photography business there, and we ended up traveling all over the country. I had a huge network online of women that I had met over the years, and they'd say, "Oh, you should come to New York City," because they knew I was so cheap. So I did that. I think I did that twice without Melissa. And then I think we went
twice with me
together. And then like we went to Washington, D.C. together once. We did a wedding. And
went to Hawaii.
Oh, we went to Hawaii. That's right. So we use that as like a way to pay for our trip and go and have fun. And we do like 20 sessions in like Central Park and, or I went to Boston and I did all these other places. So that was cool. And so, I was a photographer. I still am. I don't even do it by word of mouth. I do it by, no, thank you. I don't want to take your pictures unless I'm in a mood. And then I say yes. Like I'll be in a mood and I'll be like, okay, I'll take everyone's pictures on this one day. You get 10 minutes and it's this much money, and everyone loves their pictures, but it's like, I just do the work and then I'm done. Tell your friends who I am. I don't want to take your friends' pictures.
Yeah, exactly.
Time in my life. I love it. It brings me a lot of joy. I just don't have the time in my life. So, and then I actually ran a women's ministry for 2.5 years. Melissa was on the leadership team. And we did women's conferences. I planned 4 conferences, and due to COVID, we had to cancel 2 of them. But it was great. I mean, we had hundreds of women come to these conferences, and then we did lots of things in the middle. Like we put out online devotionals, and I had like 50 volunteers under me, and we had.
You've published 2 books?
Oh, that's right.
I published a book. I guess we've done that too. Yeah.
Yeah. One of my books is on Amazon, and my other book and Melissa's books are nowhere. They're just in our hands. So if you ever want one, you have to email us and we could, we just didn't go the Amazon route. And anyway, so.
All right. Well, that was a lot about us. I hope people kept listening if you stuck with us. Thank you. So we're going to run out of time. So we're going to say goodbye.
But we just thought people might like to kind of know some more backstory.
Who they're listening to. Yeah, exactly.
All right. Well, you guys have a great week.
Bye, guys.